And that's something to ask yourself, are you here to fuck around, or are you here to turn all of these lights on and be who you're here to be? Because you're in your way at this point, and you don't have to be. But you can't half-ass growth. You got to finish the climb no matter how hard it is. No matter what demons are in those rooms, you got to turn the light on. Happy Monday. Welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee. My name is Rick Alexander. You can follow me at @RickAlexander_ or at the Morning Coffee Podcast on Instagram. If you're digging this show, the best compliment you could give me is to head to iTunes and give us a 5-star review so that we can grow the show and get the word out there. Also, if you think that any of your network, your friends, your social media following, you think any of them would benefit from the show, it would mean the world if you just give us a share, point people to the show. I've got a message that I think could really help a lot of people, and I'm going to continue to do my best to bring it Monday through Friday. Speaking of message, one of the things that I've been contemplating on is all of the knowledge that I've gained in the last few years and that I share with you guys quite regularly about how to live your life, how to think about your life, like all of this knowledge about what life really is. It comes with it something, when you're young, you learn knowledge is power, right? And that's true to a degree, but it's not just power, it's also responsibility. One of the things that Danielle and I always talk about is doing our best to live at our highest level of knowledge, which, if you could imagine, is actually pretty difficult to do. It requires an inherent level of responsibility that, quite honestly, I don't know that a lot of people are comfortable stepping into. And I think some of the reason that we don't have an awakening in life, like we almost shy away from looking at things really how they are, is because we don't want the responsibility of having to live up to our highest level of knowledge. Because when you bring things into the light, when you bring things out of the shadows in your life, they're not pretty to look at. And that sucks. But what sucks more is that you then have a responsibility to live differently, right? Because evolution doesn't go backwards. The way I like to describe it is, as you gain more knowledge, perhaps you've been living your entire life in a dark room and you don't really hate it because you've never known anything different. You look around and talk to other people and they say, no, this is it. And so you're like pretty sure. You're like, okay, this is it. And then one day, I don't know if you're me, you're 30 years into your life, 31 years, and all of a sudden there's like a blind and there's a little piece of light poking out of the blind, and you think, oh, what the hell is that? And you walk over and then you open it and you realize what was a wall was actually a blind. And so you open it and you look out and you're like, wait, there's a whole world out there. And you're like, yeah, there is. And you're like, there's mountains and there's rivers. And you're like, oh, damn. And so then you start thinking, what if I went out there? See, evolution doesn't go backwards. So no matter what happens, even if you pull that blind back down, it's there, and you're going to have to experience it for yourself to really enjoy it. And so, you'll get out there, and then what's going to happen is the mountains are going to be taller than you thought, and the rivers are going to be harder to cross than you thought. And as you go out there and you seek more knowledge, you realize, oh, there isn't a halfway. I can't get halfway up the mountain and go back, because again, you're never going to be content. And so what knowledge brings with it is the responsibility that you're going to continue climbing, that you're going to continue seeking, that you're going to continue pushing. What happens to a lot of people is they have a certain worldview, and then they gain more knowledge. And as they gain more knowledge, they start to step out into the world. And then they instantly realize that, oh no, maybe I made a mistake. I want to go back to when I felt more safe, because right now I don't feel safe. Only knowledge comes with it the responsibility to see it through to the end. And so when you don't get to be half awake, right? And so you have to continue to push. And the really difficult part is that then you're going to see things about yourself in your journey. And this is one of the things that is always hard for me to watch, because I'm coaching people through this in their Clarity Academy, and I can see that the lights are turning on in some rooms and some rooms are not. And that can be really unsettling. And you're like, you want to go back to who you were just to feel good. It's like, no, some of those lights are on. So now you just got to go around and turn all the lights on. Like, let's face all the demons. Let's do all the work. Because knowledge brings with it this responsibility, because people that know about the right path and aren't on it get torn apart, right? Just knowing that there's a right way to be and you're not it, that creates a ton of self-loathing. And because you're so self-aware, you're actually assessing and judging yourself 24/7. So you know right away, even if you don't think about it, right? You don't have to be thinking about it. That's the part of your subconscious mind that's always self-aware and reflecting. And so part of you knows if you're not on the right path. And so a lot of us try to do this half knowledge bullshit where we see that there's a better way to be, but we want to hold on to the things that make us feel safe, like our temper tantrums, and we throw fits, and our, whatever it is that we use to cope, our alcohol or whatever, right? We want to hold on to those things, and they don't work quite as well. You see that with breakups. Sometimes people will break up and then they take it out on the opposite gender for as long as they can, or whatever. And so what they do is, to get over someone else, they get under someone else. And that definitely works, but there's going to come a point in your life where it won't anymore, right? You come a point where you're like, damn, I think I know too much. I can no longer numb myself. And so then you have to try really hard to numb yourself. And so then you have to drink more or do more drugs or whatever it is. And so you find that you're in this really unwinnable battle, and that's what it really comes down to, because you have to continue to awaken. You have to continue to bring things into the light. You have to continue climbing the mountain. And the reason you do that is because eventually you will form the picture that will make it all whole again. And you'll realize, oh, there's a much better way to be. But a lot of us are half-assing our growth journey, and we're learning some things, and we can't ever devolve. And so those some things that we're learning are like loose ends that are eating us up somewhere. And so then what we do is we often have to we have to create more apathy. So we have to numb ourselves even more if we want to deal with life being half awake. That's why a lot of times people that have a higher degree of intelligence have a really tough time in life, because especially if you're prone toward divergent thinking, because you're looking around and you're stuck in a construct and you're like, but why is it like this? And so you're constantly questioning. So you put yourself in all of these loops, and you're just staying stuck there. And so the reality is you've got to keep going. You've got to keep growing. You have to be willing to face all of the demons, not just some of the demons. But then the good thing to know about that is you have all of these parts of you that are dealing with all of these loose ends, we'll say, like things you've dealt with, times you've been dismissed, times you've been rejected, times you've been shamed. As a good rule of thumb, if you can't talk about something without it bringing some kind of emotion up, you're not through it. So some part of you is still there at however old you were at the first time you dealt with that, and you're dealing with it. The problem with that is that the real greatness in life, right, to be who you fully are, to step up in full light and truth, actually requires all of you. So you can't have parts of you that are off fighting these little psychological battles every time you leave your house, right? Even though we do, right? We're not good enough, and we have fears, and we have worries, and so all these things are getting a little bit of our bandwidth. And every time they do, we're not able to give all of us to the present moment. But the present moment is requiring all of you to make it all that it could be. So to be your best self, you need a reclamation of all the parts of you that are stuck dealing with all of this bullshit, all of the little loose ends that just come up and creep up in our lives. Some of the rooms are on for you. Some of the lights are on in some of the rooms, but some of them are still dark, and you're leaving them that way because you don't want to face what's in there. And that's okay. I get it. Because there are demons in those rooms. There are parts of you that are going to be so uncomfortable to face, to think that you're the kind of person that could do that or think like that or be like that. But that's okay too. You have to get to the understanding that it's all okay. It's just part of the process. It's not you against you or you against anybody else, right? It's just you awakening to the fact that you're what you really need in this life. You have all of the answers for yourself. You're the exact person that could carry out all of these wonders that you have running in the background, right? But right now they're just apps that are open in the back of your phone, and they're slowing you down because there's all these different parts of you that are dealing with all of these different apps. And so one, I think when you're ready to close out some of those apps, join the Clarity Academy, but also just understand you can't half-ass your growth. It'll tear you apart because knowledge brings with it an inherently large amount of responsibility. That responsibility is going to require all of you to step up to it fully and be who you're here to be. One of the things I heard Mark Groves say the other day, which I really loved, is, it's like, I'm not here to fuck around. He was talking about whether he was going to drink to get past his recent breakup, which he talked about quite publicly. And he said, I'm not here to fuck around. No, I'm not going to do that, because we know where that road goes. And that's something to ask yourself, are you here to fuck around, or are you here to turn all these lights on and be who you're here to be? Because you're in your way at this point, and you don't have to be. But you can't half-ass growth. You got to finish the climb, no matter how hard it is, no matter what demons are in those rooms. You got to turn the light on. But when you do, man, life's a whole lot different for you. I promise you that. I love you. We'll talk tomorrow on Morning Coffee.
Is there something that you're trying to say? Don't hold back now. It's been a long time since I felt this way, so don't hold back now. I purposely forgot about loving anyone, 'cause I'm the only one who has been stepped upon. Is there something that you're trying to say? 'Cause I can take it, 'cause I grew up a man this way. If I'm hurt, I'll shake it. I'll go back to my game. It's how I'll make it. 'Cause out of all this hurt we have, believe us to go. Beauty the speaker. In the morning I can see the signs. No wonder I can never keep you satisfied. In the morning I can see inside myself and all the things that you were trying to hide. In the morning I can see the signs. No wonder I can never keep you satisfied. In the morning I can see inside myself and all the things that you were trying to hide. Wishing all the best for you. Now I'll say goodbye, 'cause all the shit that we've been through, but wisdom in my eyes. So walk away and turn around, 'cause I won't be standing here. 'Cause all the lies we've been living through are becoming very clear. Satisfied. In the morning I can see inside myself and all the things that you were trying to hide. In the morning I can see the signs. No wonder I can never keep you satisfied. In the morning I can see inside myself and all the things that you were trying to hide. No wonder I can never keep you satisfied. In the morning I can see inside myself and all the things that you were trying to hide. In the morning I can see the signs. No wonder I can never keep you satisfied. In the morning I can see inside myself and all the things that you were trying to hide. In the morning I can see the signs. No wonder I can never keep you satisfied. In the morning I can see inside myself and all the things that you were trying to hide.